We're really excited to be here. As Kathy said, this is the first time we have done anything out of our new location. So we're at Hudson Yards, as Kathy said, 1 Manhattan West. We've got 9 floors that we're opening, and it's our flagship North America innovation hub. And one of the cornerstones of innovation, of course, is going to be 5G. So we thought it was very appropriate to be here today. We're still not open yet, but I really wanted to do this from this location. So we got a chance to start with share with people what we're going to be able to do here. And I just am so excited for us to be, in New York and part of the reopening of New York and its economy. So, Jenny, let's get started. You and I have known each other for a very long time. I wanted to start before we get into specific questions around, 5G and the discussion for today, but just talk a little bit about your career path. You've been in the communications industry for a long time. Now you're spearheading this, huge effort around 5G. Kind of, how did you go through that journey?
How did I get here? So yes, I've been with Accenture for quite some time, and I'm proud to say that Lynn, you and I are good friends as well as colleagues. So my family, in fact, was involved in the communications industry growing up. So when I came to Accenture, I knew I wanted to be there. There's just so much that the communication industry does to fuel things, and we're going to talk about 5G today. So, at Accenture comes a lot of flexibility, and I was able to kind of dig in. The beauty about being in the communications industry here is you really get exposed to all levels of technology. And while it is a specific industry, you're kind of fueling all the other industries. Right. So I've always kind of prided myself at pushing the envelope and going outside the boxes a little bit. So I've tried to incorporate the communications with doing that across industry. And with 5G, because I was in the industry when it was several years ago and the communications providers were talking about building out, I started to see kind of, the path of the industry overall taking what it had done historically, which is a build it and they will come. But 5G is different. We're going to talk a lot about that. So the impact is really about how all these other industries harness it, powered by what the communications providers are building. So that just got me super excited, incorporates a lot of innovation. And I was able to, kind of start talking about not just the technology of 5G, but what can businesses and industries actually do to push forward their business objectives, leveraging it. Right. So that's kind of how I got into it.
Yeah, I think it's interesting too, because I like that. I think it's important that we're always kind of reinventing ourselves and thinking about the next thing for all of us in the technology sector. So you leaning into it, I think is really, really, really important. So I want to really start at the basics, because we're probably all of us that are here today at different levels of understanding, and it's something, I'm trying to learn more about. So talk a little bit about just what is it? For those of us who may be starting at kind of just interested in, okay, what's 5G? And then we'll talk more about the implications it's going to have.
Sure. So the basic question is always, what is it, when is it, and why do I care? So on the kind of what is it, it really isn't just the next iteration of cellular kind of technology or advancement. It's partially that, but it's also much more. So it's kind of a collision of tremendous advancement in cellular capabilities, which is kind of more what we all know and feel, right? Like what we have on our personal devices. It will be bigger, faster, stronger in what we perceive. But the other parts that make it really special and kind of make it kind of an exponential advancement are the advancements in the networking and how that's run, which honestly, we can go super deep in that. But that we just know that it's going to be very advanced. And then the third component is really computing. So we all are very familiar with cloud now and thinking about that and digital transformation. But what 5G and those three components come together, they almost create limitless possibilities. And the thing about that I want everyone to really embrace is it isn't about I need to upgrade to 5G. It's about 5G is going to be this kind of capability unleashing technology that really enables us to do things we haven't yet imagined. So it is, in fact, a very advanced technology. It is going to advance kind of the speed of how we download things, the amount of devices we can connect, how much data you can transport wirelessly. It's definitely going to do all that. But the combination of how exponential those advancements are really the secret sauce kind of 5G. I'm going to just a quick story that I just loved. It's kind of weird, but I was watching This Is Us, that popular program, and I'm way behind, so probably people have seen that, but they did a blurb about the person who was instrumental in inventing the technology with Apple in the early 70s that enables FaceTime today. And the whole thing was why are you working in this? And he went through this thing about, well, imagine if you could connect to someone across the country. No one could even imagine that. Now we can't live without it.
That, right.
5G,
especially this past year.
100%. 5G is going to enable so many of those things that we won't be able to live without, that we can't even imagine now.
Right. I thought it was interesting because and we'll put it in the chat, the study that we've done about this, and you and I are going to reference it a couple of times as we discuss it. But one of the statements in there that really struck me is it talks about 4G, right, which came about 10 years ago, roughly, and how the year after 4G was deployed, the word of the year was app. Right, because of it being, human, machine, and digital that was enabled by that. And you think about that, like you wouldn't have thought about that word 2 years before that, but because of 4G and what it enabled, we're all doing apps on our phones. Made me think, okay, so what's the word 18 months from now, right? That starts to be, as 5G's rolled out, that we're not even imagining.
That's right.
Not even imagining yet. Okay, so let's go into a little bit around, because we will reference this study a bit. And one of the things that we've been researching is the economic impact, right, of what will happen with 5G, around jobs and economy and stuff. So just share with everybody a little bit about what that will be.
Yeah, I mean, one question that we get, and I am talking to kind of all clients in different industries, is, well, isn't this like something that the communications industry is focused on? Like, kind of, why do I care? Well, the reason why we care kind of came out in this economic study. What I did not author it, another organization of ours worked diligently on it. Many people contributed. But what it uncovered was, in the next 4 years, not 10 years, in the next 4 years, it's going to create a tremendous amount of economic value in the US. And the reason why the numbers are so large, and I just don't want to mess them up, but $1.5 trillion in GDP advancement, 16 million jobs
in the U.S.
In the U.S.
Yeah.
We also did the study in Europe as well, but the published one focuses on the U.S.
Right.
$2.7 trillion in sales. Those numbers are incredible. But the reason why they're so incredible, and the reason why we all need to think in almost anything we're trying to do in our lives or our business of how this is going to unleash power, is because it's a multiplier effect. It's going to create new industries. With the word app, or whatever our next word is going to be. Yeah. It's going to create new platforms, new industries, new dynamics that we have yet to imagine. What that comes with is new revenue. It grows the pie. It grows the pie significantly. So that was, I think I used to say the number is big. And now that we've quantified it, it's bigger than even we had anticipated.
I mean, and that 16 million, if I have my math right, that's about a 10% increase in jobs in the U.S. I mean, it is a big number. And the number, I think, because I always care about, New York Metro, since that's kind of the area I cover, was like 2 million jobs in this area, which is, a huge economic impact.
Yeah.
The other thing that I thought was interesting out of the study too is that the economic impact is able to have that multiplier effect because it's actually changing the value chain of the way things are delivered. So you'll be able to, untether people some from the desk. We've seen certainly a lot of that this past year, but allows us to just separate worker from workstation in a whole different way because of the low latency. So that's what I want to get into maybe a little bit next. Is let's talk a little bit about what you're seeing in terms of how Accenture believes that we can leverage this, that we'll see different industries leverage this in what ways?
Sure. So I think what I'm kind of proud of Accenture's approach is there's definitely the how do you build these capabilities, the technology of it all. And Accenture is a technology company. We put a lot of focus on that and can advise in several factors and actually build some of those capabilities. But we are about kind of economic value for our clients, business value. So the approach that we are kind of taking is not, hey, here's 5G. How are you going to use it? You know, a hammer looking for a nail. But what are your business objectives? How do you see yourself as an enterprise transforming and leveraging digital technology? And then which of those aspirations, again, trying to think outside of our current constraints, which of those aspirations can be accelerated or can benefit from the fact that we've got this advanced technology? And it's like it's trying to eat an elephant at once. 5G is, the technology is so flexible and so deconstructed that the potential and the limits are gone. That makes it really complicated. And like, how do I fit this in? And what does it mean? And should I just kind of wait for someone else to figure it out? What we say, you know, and the other question that comes up is, well, is it here yet? And it is. The advancement of developing those apps or products, you know, generally takes 18 to 24 months from inception of idea. The bottleneck is not going to be the build of the capability. The bottleneck is going to be our own innovation and our own lack of getting ahead of it. So in the study, the industries, they looked at 16 different sectors. But what it boiled down to, there were 5 kind of that would be quote unquote most impacted in the US. And they are manufacturing, retail, utilities, auto, transport, and retail. Did I say retail?
Healthcare.
Healthcare, thank you.
You're welcome.
So those are the ones that if you're researching on the use cases, you see the most about. You hear a lot about remote surgery,
Right.
you know, driverless cars. And folks say, well, we can do that today. But the capabilities are there. But as far as the cost parameters and the reliability and the lack of latency, it isn't there. It's not accessible really yet at scale. But, you know, an example of one thing in manufacturing is we know that machines can be, they have devices on them. You can monitor them. If somebody's shirt, let's say, gets snagged up in a machine, it will automatically shut down. The idea is that what if there were video and computer vision there that could see that I've got a loose blouse on, I'm in a danger zone, proactively tell me, or something comes up untucked while I'm doing my work before and preemptively something happens. There's an immediate back and forth and transfer and computing of data that prevents that. That is,
and what you're saying there is that there's AI capabilities of analyzing that video data.
It's underlying, right? There's multiple things. So computer vision requires high definition of video transfer, you know, lots of volume, and real-time compute of what those cameras are seeing. And then the AI component of figuring it out. There's machine learning components of how do the machines react. So these are all technologies we've heard about. But because of this underlying capability that 5G is going to unleash and what you can do with them, it's really going to make them exponentially more impactful. IoT has been around a long time. We understand about sensors and devices. Massive IoT, where really everything is kind of tagged, if you will, and connected, and you're able to digest and process all that data and preemptively and real time make decisions, is really not feasible today. Technically, could you build it all out? You wouldn't be able to maintain it and build it. 5G is going to enable stuff like that. So manufacturing is really one that's being very, very focused on, honestly, everywhere at this point because of the kind of natural nature of IoT. And there's been a lot of digital advancements.
Yeah. It does seem like the massive IoT, the massive broadband, and then the latency being so much more reduced with 5G is really that's the holy grail of it all comes together to just unleash things that weren't able to be done before.
Yep.
Is there another industry that you're excited about, or?
So I'm actually excited about the merging, if you will, of B2C and B2B. And what I mean by that is we've seen it actually through COVID. The expectations that we have in our enterprises is blurring with our expectations as consumers. So at least literally pre-COVID, I'll take my own example. I would I have very high expectations of my personal devices and what they do and the apps and the ease of use. I had much lower expectations for my
Mhm.
working environment and the responsiveness and the how kludgy it is to log in and things. All of that is going to completely blur. So I think, retail, hospitality, the enterprise changes that will happen that will impact us all as human beings is going to be, I think, really exciting. And those are
Yeah.
the things that we won't be able to live
Know
without.
without
We,
yet. Yeah.
yeah, we can't even
Yeah. How'd
imagine
we
that.
live with that? Live without that. So one of the things that we're doing here at One Manhattan West is enabling ourselves for 5G, as you know, because we want to be able to work with our clients and with different industries and ecosystem partners and across a lot of different dimensions in terms of starting to pilot these things and study them and learn about them and share stories and create these use cases. So maybe just give a second, because I am excited about what we're going to be able to do here around how you see 5G being used in these kind of pilots with clients.
Yeah. So there are many innovation spaces and many, what I'll say, industrial type demos. So to show things like what I was just describing in manufacturing. So we're going to do those type of things here. But we're really about kind of, like you said, leaning forward, right, and getting ahead. So we're going to imagine 2024 or the future with 5G in multiple industries. So are there a lot of things to be worked out as those things come to scale? Of course. But the idea, back what I said before about trying to be unencumbered by today's constraints, we're going to show that. So we're going to talk about, healthcare in a scenario where 5G is, everyone's got it. The devices are connected. You've got the low latency, the hospital, and imagine the amount of lives that would be saved by shaving seconds off of responsiveness, or being able to get to folks that you wouldn't be able to get to, or being able to clear traffic in Manhattan, for the path of the ambulances without causing a complete lockdown of Manhattan. Those are things we say, well, yeah, that would be great, but can you really do it? You can. We will be able to do it. It doesn't come without difficulty, and it's that's why Accenture's doing it, right?
Yeah, because first you got to see it.
Yeah, but you've got to be able to
Yeah.
envision it, and that's really what's going to be our focus in this facility, which I'm super excited about.
Yeah. Anything else around industry convergence that you wanted to call out? Because I do think I love this, blurring that happens at these inflection points. I mean, we got it with 4G, right? And we've gotten it with, the internet and all sorts of stuff where you start getting blurring of value chains and just the way that business is delivered. Anything else that people should know about just in, convergence that you're thinking about?
Yeah, I think, convergence is one of those terms that we hear all the time. Consultancies speak to, right? Transformation, convergence. This is really, there's technology convergence where various pieces of technology advancement come together. There's industry convergence, which we saw a lot of this past year by necessity. And 5G is going to be kind of all of that, in addition to the one I mentioned earlier, between the blur of expectations between how we are as consumers and how we are in enterprises and work. So it's really kind of convergence on steroids. It's going to really be about the solutions, again, versus any particular technology. All those things are going to come together to create how we, quote unquote, work and live in a very different way. And yes, there's going to be very complicated technology under it. That's why leading with 5G is always hard. I don't understand it. There's going to be very complex technology underneath it, but it's really going to be about how we all experience it kind of across. So it really is, in my mind, kind of, on steroids, convergence.
It is really interesting because what you think about what you're saying, because I think we always think about our industries, and as business leaders and practitioners, we think about, okay, now what do I need to do in my industry? But it's almost like our conversations and our thought process has to be outside of our industry and more around what's happening in other areas or could be happening, right? You can bleed across those walls a bit. So I want to get in one more question because I do want to turn it back to Kathy. And if as the audience has some questions, we certainly want to get to those also. But before we get to that, I'd like to maybe just get your thoughts on the role that you think 5G can have post-pandemic around recovery and resilience and, digital divide and the things that it can do to be part of that recovery.
Sure. I'll start with the last one. I think, and I know you work a lot on this stuff, so specifically in New York, right? So please chime in. But the digital divide, there's definitely a lot of promise with 5G about rural areas and access. And the fact is that more of the population is apt to be connected wirelessly than, kind of tethered. So that movement's already started to happen, and 5G is going to enable that. So I think that is, a kind of great point. On the resiliency, it's definitely going to enable that reaction times and how you adapt. Like, honestly, we all surprised ourselves. Maybe not at Accenture because we work remotely all the time, but there was a surprise in how well things could function and how quickly you could kind of move to that. But to me, I think what would really change, like if we kind of, God forbid, have something like what happened to us this past 15 months, it's the preventative. Like, could it have gotten or prevented or slowed down because of the capabilities of what we'd be able to have? Could we have reacted and isolated where it originated much more quickly? Could we have kind of done whatever we were going to do as far as isolation? We won't get into the politics of that, but whatever was going to be done, the decision making could have been done quicker and more connected and more information available about what was happening. So to me, it's about, there will be resiliency kind of built in, but it's also about what will it do? How can it help us kind of not get into these situations based on everything it's going to enable?
Yeah, I do think it's really fascinating. And this idea around how, I think until we got into the pandemic, you didn't realize how some people just didn't have connections, and how people relied on a mobile connection, and that just wasn't enough, right? So I am looking forward to that rollout. So I wanted to maybe take a minute, because we've been going on for 20, 25 minutes now, to maybe turn it back over to Kathy to just see if we have any questions that you'd like to make sure we cover.
Yes, and we have people in New York and California viewing this, and I didn't see anybody from around the world today, but one of the questions this person knows about 5G, they advise that the wavelength has a range of about 1,000 feet, and the huge infrastructure investments may limit this to major metropolitan areas. And then they also ask, when will 5G be workable even in these metropolitan areas in the US? Timing questions.
Sure. So on the second question, I'll answer that one first. And those are the three we always get. Yeah. As far as kind of ubiquitous coverage, everyone has access, it's everywhere. You're probably still a year or two out, but it isn't as far out as it was, and everything's been accelerated. And in different geographies, it's different. Asia is a bit more kind of advanced, I would say, in their rollout. A lot of that has to do with the fact that they've got huge populations, but true kind of geographic coverage is smaller, right? Whereas the US is expansive. And then Europe is a bit behind, more from spectrum availability and things like that. But on the wavelengths and how much distance, there's many different bands of spectrum, and I am not a deep technologist, but the misnomer of, well, it's really not going to be able to kind of go that far, just like today, where you travel through, our kind of personal devices are transferring through different levels and types of networks unbeknownst to us. That will be what the situation is with 5G. Because of the flexibility of the network, when you need high speeds and very low latency with short distances, it will use that level of spectrum. When you don't need it, you need a little bit more distance, but you don't need that real time, it will use that. It won't be a one size fits all. That's what the kind of decomposition of it will enable. But there are instances where millimeter wave is one of the highest, the kind of biggest speed is obstructed and has less of a distance. But the network and the components as they put it together and the antennas and the advancements in devices are compensating for all of that. So there'll be bumps along the road, but it's not going to work. They are, they're going to leverage all those aspects of networking to make it work.
Well, and obviously, just from the announcements over the last couple of weeks, the carriers have really doubled down on this, right? I mean, they're
Huge
divesting
investments.
themselves, as you can see, of other businesses in order to really spend their capital in this area.
That's right.
So this one, I know this person lives in Paris. So I see Stephen, he's posted a Verizon.com study on the European private 5G deal with the Associated British Ports. Is that something you know about, or should we just say that's noted in the chat and move on?
I don't.
So we'll say it's noted in the
I don't
chat.
know.
As an example, I asked in the chat for examples of practical use of 5G, and Stephen put that in there.
We'll definitely go read that.
Right.
So
yeah, no,
the good thing about
that we're getting the sharing.
Yes.
Yeah, Tech Up. I mean, we're all about sharing and supporting one another. So,
Amen.
You said you always get that question. One question we always get is, tell us about your career. And each of you have had a long tenure at Accenture, but it would be helpful. A lot of our audience are mid-level and also college individuals. So if you could just share a little bit about your career and careers at Accenture.
Good.
I did a bit of that. So do you want to take it first?
Yeah, sure. Happy to. So I am a lifer at Accenture. My joined right out of school. Did not plan on being a lifer, but it coming out with a degree in business, I saw that it had a great training program. I thought I'd spend 2 years, get to learn a lot of different things, and then move on to something else. My view was always I'd probably end up in banking because my undergraduate degree was in finance. But once I got into consulting, I loved it because it was the variety of experiences. So over the course of my career, I've worked in just about every industry: financial services, healthcare, public service, manufacturing, retail, and then a lot over the last years in communications, high tech, and media. And it's been kind of the change of the business that I really enjoy, and the fact that you do get to learn new things, be it technology or business or industries or whatever, over time. A little bit about me. I've got 2 children. I also found that, and people are sometimes surprised by this, career in consulting actually fit very well with raising 2 children. I worked Accenture's been good to me. I think I've been good to them too. And I worked a part-time schedule for a long time, which really worked out well, for me. And then just a lot of different opportunities to try, different things over the years. But I will say that that ability to kind of have, for a portion of my career where I was working a different schedule, I worked mainly, I made sure I was on in-town assignments, that sort of thing was really instrumental for me while I had, smaller kids. So that's been a huge thing. And then the last thing I'll say is just, I love the opportunity to always be learning. And that's what I love, Kathy, what you do with Tech Up for Women is you give people an opportunity to just start, learning new areas and new fields. So
Yes.
Yeah, I told a little bit about myself earlier. So I won't repeat that, but I second Lynn, and I know you mentioned STEM. I was in my major. I was one of 2 women in that major when I graduated way back when. And what enticed me about coming into the field of consulting was the kind of variety and the exposure that you could get to not just kind of pure technology, but also its impact more broadly, whether it be societal or or businesses, and Accenture, has provided that, and consulting provides that. And I always, just like Lynn, many of us come in, I'm a lifer too. Many of us come in and say, oh, we'll do something else in a couple of years. And I just kind of in my own mind said, well, as soon as I am bored, because I'm not somebody to be bored, as soon as I'm bored, I'll move on. And here I am decades later.
Right.
I'm not bored yet.
So agree with you. When it
So
gets
Kathy,
bored-
did you have other questions? If not, I did want Jenny to talk for maybe a second just around what are the, sorry, I got a little bit of a delay. Wanted Jenny to talk about maybe what the skills are needed for 5G so that people are aware of what kind of skills we're going to need to develop.
Why don't you do that? And then I have the questions that are coming in. So I have two more.
Okay, good.
Just real quickly, I would say certainly the traditional kind of engineering, computer science, technical type aspects, 100%. But back to the point of the multiplier effect in number of jobs, honestly, it's going to open up more quote unquote STEM jobs than what we know of today. And the flexibility in the networks right now, we all rely, if you want to be a network expert, you work in communications, that's not going to be the case anymore, because there's going to be a lot of kind of flexibility in running these networks and a lot of complexity in it, not dissimilar to technical platforms, just kind of compute platforms. So that's going to open up the need for more and more of those skills outside the traditional industries where they sit. So I think it's going to just open up tremendous amount of opportunity.
Good.
That's good. That's what we're about too, our careers progressing. Sylvia asked, what would you say 5G will change the way consumers use technology, as well as in the future, or would it, what is the impact on us as consumers? So your clients may be B2C, and how does that impact us as consumers?
I think the consumer impact is going to be the largest felt impact. And how, I need a crystal ball to figure that out. I know our audience is young, but I often refer to it as like the Jetsons, right? When I was a kid, I was watching the Jetsons, and they had little robots rolling around and people teleporting and flying cars. And that was just so out there, but it's right here. A lot of that is here. So I think we as consumers are truly going to live very differently, just as we are today, living extremely more connected with more possibilities and more expectations of these devices and what we do than we were 5 years ago. And I think it's going to happen rapidly now. COVID has accelerated that. We at Accenture were already seeing kind of that digital acceleration. It is really going to snowball, and it will be one of those things where there will be some breakthroughs. Probably somebody sitting in MIT, one of those institutions now, dreaming something up that will just change everything we do. And there will be a bit of a snowball effect, because it will drive device advancement and acceleration and capability and expectation advancement. And that's just going to open up tons back to our STEM possibilities for careers and what everyone's doing.
Yeah, and as you said earlier, it's not so much the infrastructure that's going to be the queuing, it's our imaginations and our innovation that's going to hold us back. So I think that's true. Like, I can hardly wait to see all the startups that will be created as a result of 5G capabilities.
Right.
This is a good one
and
for
I
maybe.
Think one of the industries I think we'll see a lot in is healthcare. Because I think some of the barriers around remote health have broken down because of the pandemic. And I see that, and that was more a regulatory thing, but have that barrier being broken down, I think that's one of the areas where we're going to see just a ton of innovation happening.
Yeah, definitely. It's exciting. I get so excited. Catherine Chilton gives us a good setup for possibly the last question. What would you recommend to clients of yours who have no idea and are just going on their 5G journey at the beginning of it? So any comments on that?
Yeah, I think I think it is truly, there's a bit of education, but honestly, I think there's almost this paralysis in, I want to fully understand all the technical implications and what it means as a technology and networking first, and then I'm going to figure out what to do with it. What we're encouraging our clients to do is to actually be unencumbered. Assume you can do anything. And that sounds crazy, but it is a big innovation type process of think about what I'm trying to solve for. There's kind of this, let's do what we're doing today, better, faster, stronger, and that's improving. And then there's disrupting. So the improving one is much easier for us to get to because it's like, okay, I know I want to do things differently, but I know what I'm doing. And then we're really encouraging also on that disruptive side, because that's where the real growth is going to come of think about how you could grow your business or enter a new business or literally create a new dynamic that you weren't able to create before that you've always been challenged with. And don't think about how am I going to apply 5G to, just figure out what you want to do. And then it will likely be a combination of Wi-Fi technologies and 5G technologies and AI and machine learning and those, the flexibility that you have to bring those things together is really what's going to disrupt. So we really encourage to understand 5G enough so that you're comfortable, but don't get so encumbered in it. Start to think outside the box of what you want to accomplish. And then companies like Accenture can help you figure out how to kind of map through that. That's what we encourage.
I can just imagine all the fun things that we're going to create, such as just how we're going to buy our shoes. Maybe we can try our shoes on at home before we buy. Okay. Anything else that either one of you want to say before we conclude? Anything that you wanted to share that we didn't share?
No, the only thing I would add, Kathy, is just, maybe a little bit of advice for people. And Jenny will send, and we can put it in the link, like some training and stuff if people want that. But I also think it's a great opportunity, since we're at the cusp of this, for people to start, a bit of a think group at their organizations, just to study it and to talk about it and to take some ownership of what might be the possibilities, I think, and start to be that impetus. I just think it's a great chance for people to maybe form some workshops or working groups or reading groups around, sharing, what this could be, and to position yourself as a, member of that community that will take this forward with their companies.
And the only thing I would add is your excitement, Kathy, is right. I mean, I often call myself the girl who cried 5G because I get so excited about the potential and what is going to happen and what my daughter's life is going to be like with all of these advancements and my son's life. So do get excited and then take that excitement and do some of the things that Lynn's talking about and just start to push the envelope. This is one of those things that those of us as individuals, whether it be in our personal lives or, at our businesses, those that lean in and really start to kind of push and get excited and think without limits is what's going to advance kind of all of the leveraging of 5G. So it's a super exciting time. I share your excitement, Kathy.
And to our audience, this is what Tech Up is about, becoming the thought leader in your organization, even if it is not in your position description. So I think that's great advice to our audience. I just want to thank both of you for taking time in your new studio today, even though New York City is such a brilliant sunny day out. And we're glad that you joined us. And this is how to connect with Tech Up for Women, as well as Accenture, and as well as our two speakers. And this this recording will be on our website probably by tomorrow. So we're so glad to have you all join us, and see you next Tuesday.